Hello, Spiral Out podcast listeners. Run over to rockabilia.com. It's the coolest place on the internet to get all your officially licensed music merch. That's right, officially licensed. You can get Tool shirts. You could get a Perfect Circle hoodie, a Deftone shirt. You could get a Metallica towel. You could get a Sleep Token sculpture. So head on over to rockabilia.com and use the promo code SPIRALOUT to get 10% off your order. Again, rockabilia.com, promo code SPIRALOUT to get your Metallica t-shirt or your Tool shirt or a AC/DC towel or a Beatles blanket. They have a ton of cool stuff. I bought a Deftones poster the other day. And again, official tour poster. So rockabilia.com. Thank you for listening. Spiral out. As long as we've known each other and been trying to do this, I think this was relatively rushed. Like from the other
that is kind of funny. Like it's been a lot of back and forth and going a long time, and then ready to do it and quick and minor difficulties.
Yeah. Hello everyone and welcome to Spiral Out Podcast. I'm your host Kris West. Our special guest today, NC Winters.
Hello.
Long time fan. Long time trying to get you on the show.
It has been a while. A lot of back and forth. I saw you at the convention and multiple after that, and chatting back and forth, and was anxious to get on the show. So yeah,
I really appreciate it. I guess we'll just jump right into things. Pretty prolific since I've been in the poster world or art world, or what do you call this universe that we're in that we talk about?
Oh gosh. Since what I do overlaps so many different things, I would probably say the gig poster world is probably most applicable to looking at your background and
right.
What I do. The gig poster world is what I would say.
Well, in the gig poster world, I would say there are at least currently maybe five big names, and you're definitely one of them five.
Oh, thank you. I don't know about that, but as I always try to say, I try not to make the worst posters out there.
They are definitely not the worst posters. Getting started, how did you get into art and all that madness? Like, where did you start to find your artistic expression? Did it start early?
I was actually just talking about this the other day. I remember as a kid, one of the first things I was constantly drawing was both clowns, and I had a recurring image of an eyeball with a nail through it. That was kind of my go-to image, and in retrospect, it's understandable why I think a lot of people were concerned. But it wasn't gory and gruesome. It was just sort of a image, like a little drop of blood at the end. But I guess that's pretty gruesome. As I get older, this question is harder and harder to recollect time with. So I didn't know how to draw at some point before 8 because I had a crush on my neighbor, and she could draw. She was older. She was like my babysitter.
I'm sure.
And so I was probably, 6, 7. And she came home and was showing me a drawing from her school that she did, and I was blown away. And I think either having a crush on her or just finding that amazing, I sort of started drawing then. But, I wasn't drawing my whole life. It has evolved since, really full-time drawing nonstop since I was at least 10. I kind of, besides those few moments that I talked about, pretty much most of my memories are drawing in my life. I just specifically remember that time she brought that home, but I've been drawing on and off nonstop. I was doing watercolor, and then my style has kind of evolved into this style now. Probably a good 10 years before the gig posters.
Sure.
So,
and I kind of describe it as like textured, dreamlike, like your style is surreal, but there's these bright universes and intricate everything, but like butterflies. And I mean, you talked about one of your first drawings was the eye. That seems to be a theme throughout your entire career.
Yeah, that's funny. I hadn't really thought about that. It has definitely become one of the main images that I keep returning to. If there was ever one image that I could keep coming back to that also has it has an interesting power over a lot of other things. You can draw a lot of different things, a lot of different forms, a lot of different parts of the human body, even a face. But there's something about even just an eye devoid of any other part of the body. It's probably the most minimal thing you can draw of the human body that is enough to connote a connection with another person, another being. I don't think I ever really thought about it that way. They were just interesting images, but there is always something captivating about the eyes, windows to the soul, and all that. You can just zoom in forever, and even just one eye on a page, you can see intelligence, you can see life, you can see compassion, you can see anger. So yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything else that I could draw that's more fundamentally interesting on the most broad of levels, and they're just cool images to boot. So
They really are, and you put them in places that you might not normally see them, right?
No, yeah, I'll wrap them in flowers. I'll wrap them in debris, crystal, metal, steel. A lot of my work is very sort of stream of consciousness. So I might start with an eye, and I sort of pull from my subconscious, but there's always textures and images and nature and the natural world that I like to blend in, but I almost use it as sort of almost like Legos, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
To incorporate nature, I've always been fascinated by human interaction with nature. So for a long time, one of the big things that I loved to paint was rust, because it's one of the most fundamental, mankind, industry, technology, metal, and nature, sort of trying to always take it back. So I'm always kind of in this juxtaposition of natural objects and man-made objects, and a human eye is kind of a good link between the two. And I like to sort of make my images as I've said it before that I'm trying to illustrate sort of a feeling or an emotion, or really a feeling, kind of abstractly, rather than anything super directly, if that makes sense.
So you said you started like around 7, but was getting into drawing more regularly at 10, and then you keep going and keep going. When do you start to notice your own style and start to incorporate those types of elements and feelings and emotions? Like, when do you go from like, think this is fun and I want to put myself into it, or put that stream of consciousness into it? Or do you notice that switch?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think it was, in my best moments, I'm not noticing it. And in my best moments, and even now my wife is like, just go draw, and just for no reason, but just go draw. And lately with workload, it's hard to just sort of let go and do that. Especially with client work. It's like you have to switch brains. When did I really start to, I would say I had it fairly early on, but my work never really felt like it fit in anywhere. But I always kind of felt like I was doing it wrong. But it did evolve. So the way I would draw figures, and I was drawing these sexy girls for a while, then I was drawing animals for a while. And every time I did, there was always a point where I was sort of doing it my way and adding elements that were visually interesting, but that maybe didn't really make compositional sense. I like using graphic elements. I've always enjoyed a subject or a figure and also, that I'm trying to render in believable space, almost like a photograph, and combining that with, hey, I'm making a drawing, I'm making a two-dimensional flat image. I can do anything. I can make line, I can make shape, I can make paint splatters, and I enjoyed adding that thing that was almost outside of reality, physical reality, and it was more like something that would be on a page in that physical reality, and where there would be a background, but then there would be something that doesn't make any sense and is more about a two-dimensional. So there's this shift back and forth, and that was always interesting to me, and I really just thought I didn't know how to draw, and I didn't know how to keep a composition, and they didn't ever make sense, but I could never get away from it. It just kept evolving and changing to what it is now, and it'll probably change more soon.
When did you start noticing people responding to it? Like, when did you start thinking that this could possibly be a career?
I don't know my age. I want to say I was 8 or 9, but I specifically remember drawing Ninja Turtles in school, in elementary school, and I was giving them away. And my mom specifically, she said, you have to start charging. You can't just give your work away. And so I started charging a quarter to draw Ninja Turtles in school, and people were paying. So I had like extra lunch and candy money. And I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. Like, I don't know if I've ever caught that high again, but that was when I thought there was something there. I thought, I have a sheet of paper and other people have a sheet of paper and markers, but I can take that sheet of paper and make money out of it. And even to this day, having something, especially with a dimension or a piece of sculpture or whatever, and go, I can do enough to this that someone will want to buy it. Is something that's still never not amazing, and I feel lucky that I can do it.
You noticed that you could sell these at 8, but I'm guessing you still had to go to like high school and college.
Oh yeah.
And after, or maybe not college. I didn't go to college, but I'm guessing there was some time where you said, this is what I'm doing as an adult. Like, I know what, like, I'm going in this direction, and I'm gonna be an artist.
Yeah, I was moonlighting for sure. I definitely was always drawing on the side of, or during my other quote unquote real jobs. I worked at a print shop. I did a lot of contract work, signing catalogs. I worked at an ad agency in New York where I was the production manager, and even then I was drawing, but I was doing the production side of things, and so I was doing little, I was showing in coffee shops. I had little gallery shows here and there that were, in a shop, or I had a piece up in like a yogurt shop, and so I was doing a lot of like mini light types of shows. I even had a couple small gallery shows for very small, like framing galleries and all. So I was always trying to do it on the side and make it happen. Sort of with the idea that someday this would be full time, but I had to moonlight. I had to still pay the bills. And then it actually was when we moved out here to California, and we didn't have jobs, and I knew I would find enough work freelancing and doing it. And I even got this tattoo. Was it's a tattoo of a star on my arm. Was my unemployable tattoo back when tattoos were still a little taboo for jobs.
Sure.
This was a
I'm not going back. Yeah.
I'm not going back. I'm going to do this full time. And little did I know now, tattoos are commonplace, but this was my public, visible. I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to sell I was starting to sell my work more, and I'm like, I'm just going to do this full time. And I'm not going back. So that was probably, it was out here somewhere. So it was probably, I couldn't tell you.
Some time ago.
2007, is that right? We've been out here that long? It might have been in 2007. So,
sure.
God, a while, like 14 years, something like that. So, yeah. And I've been doing it ever since. So, full time.
Was there a specific piece from that era or slightly after that may have kind of skyrocketed you, or like?
Yeah. I would say probably the most memorable was my first gig poster. Primus and Jeremy Packer, Zombie Yeti, was a friend of mine, is a friend of mine, and he said, "Hey, do you have any interest in gig posters?" And I'd sort of seen them around. And I was like, "Yeah, actually, I would really love to take a crack at that." Bands, rock bands, music that I grew up listening to, and just that exists out there, and also I can have an illustration for them that's part of that canon. That's part of that. I'm officially a part of that industry and part of that. There's a tether in a way. And he said, okay, and he reached out to Zoltron of gig poster fame, and passed me along, and really he took me under his wing. Like, I'm forever grateful to him. And he said, okay, I got a gig poster for Primus. It was May of, I can't even remember the date exactly. May, and I think in Atlanta.
What image was that?
When I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, there's the constant anxiety of like, what do I do? Do I play it safe? Do whatever? And he went out of his way to say, don't play it safe. Be as weird as you want. Go weird. Go wild. Be yourself. He made a specific point to say, be you. Go crazy. And so I said, okay, worst case, if this is the only one I ever do, I'm not gonna do it and feel bad that I held back. And so I did this image of this girl, this kind of wild and crazy, like fairy looking girl. And she has butterfly wings coming out of her eyes and face, and it fills the entire upper 2/3 of the piece. And she's looking down and about ready to chomp on this. Looks like a piece of candy, and it's this large bulbous body of the back of this bug. So it's really bizarre and weird and out there. And I had this colorful border, and it was really kind of manic energy, and it exploded. People went crazy. It sold out. It was like, who is this guy? And that led to so many. I mean, that was it, the rest is history, as they say. Like that really launched my my career. And when I was still trying to figure everything else out, it was also really great money, especially when they sell out. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
But going from concept to completion, like how does one think of this, or do they just start and it kind of happens as you go?
I would say my way that I do things in general, I find is not the normal way that everyone else does it, or the correct way. So I've just made a career out of that, and I'm fine with that. My way it's usually sort of a rough sketch of kind of the broad strokes of the idea that I have, and that can be a lot of sitting around thinking, going back and forth, like, what do I want to draw? What's going to be enjoyable? What's going to be a composition that features the band name and the information, the design aspect of it. And then I, start drawing. And often the way a lot of my pieces are is I start, and then every idea is kind of a seed that I don't know what it's going to bloom into. So it starts, it goes, I keep drawing. That was back when I was really doing everything pencil into ink and then digital. So, it was about making a drawing, making a tighter drawing, and then doing the final, tracing of that onto paper and ink, which is very tedious. But then I can kind of just, even then I'll, deviate from the inks or from the pencil, and I'll just sort of, as I'm making the piece, it's sort of like laying the tracks as you go. I don't recommend it for everybody, but I have a rough sketch, I have a layout, but I do know that as I'm going, I change things as I go. And so I really kind of have a seed of an idea, knowing that I'll figure it out as I go, and knowing, and I've had that relationship with my clients ever since with gig posters is I'll say, look, this is a sketch. You've seen my other posters. You see how they turn out, but they all start with a sketch like this, and it's a little vague, it's a little rough, but it'll be okay in the end. You got to trust me.
What are things from day to day, and maybe have evolved over time that keep you inspired to keep creating? Like what gets your creative juices flowing?
That's interesting, because I sort of have I often have a couple different drawings going, and sometimes I try to use them for posters. But more often than not, I get the announcement or I get the invite, and then I think about it, and sometimes they're often shower ideas. They're often warm shower or on a walk or something or somewhere random. But I have a variety of different sort of I have Pinterest boards of ideas and things that are interesting, but it's me in a lot of reference photos. But it's really kind of I hate to say it, but like a kind of inspiration bolt of this was a cool image that pops into my head. I mean, that's the thing is I really wish I was better about articulating where and how I get my ideas, but it is often very much a mystery to me, and I don't have a definitive process. Sometimes I can bang my head against the wall forever and be like, "Is this it? Did I lose it?" And I can't, and then something will pop in, or I'll be working on something that I submitted, and then be like, "Oh, this is wrong. This is the idea I want to do," and a lot of times I reach back out to the client and say, "Hey, I know you approved this sketch, but this is this exciting thing that and they're always like, "Yeah, go for it, whatever you want to do." But it makes commercial work where they want a tight thing hard. But
So I mean, what I think you're saying there is that experimentation plays a big role.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I have a fan group, and sometimes I'll pull out stacks of work that are half done or in progress, and I'm just looking around, and there are hundreds and hundreds of pieces that are abandoned, started, probably ADHD, an interesting idea at the time, or oh, I want to explore this more further later, or abandoned, or halfway there, or constant exploration, or even if I'm working on a piece. Halfway through, I'll go, oh, this should be better this way, or it'd be better if it was this kind of animal, or the tone for this, I want it to be more aggressive or more gentle, or and so a lot of it comes with a spark of an idea that feels right, but then it really is a jumping off point. It really is often I sort of think of it as excavating an idea rather than executing an idea. Like I'm pulling it out of the rock. I don't really know what I'm going to find. A lot of what I'm adapting to are lines that I've made as I go. And while it seems like, well, you made those lines, there's an element of sort of chaos and sort of, the first half of the piece is putting down paths and decisions and choices and where it might go. And the last half is executing and following through on those paths where you're like, okay, if you're going realistic, you got to keep going realistic generally. If you're making this character with these, arms or whatever, you've got to now draw the rest in the hands. Like you have to, so there's choices that you have to follow through on, but the beginning inspiration is often, it can take a couple different forms. Not every piece has the same sort of way that it starts. Sometimes it's, ready to go, fully articulated in my head, very rarely. And other times it kind of meanders. So
I'm guessing there are a lot of happy accidents then.
Tons of happy accidents. Big Bob Ross fan. I think what's interesting about that is I'm a big Bob Ross fan, and I know what he meant. But I think even when you watch him, and I watched a lot of Bob Ross, you do still have to. I'm very much also in the Stephen King camp, which is you have to just sit down and put in the work and put in the hours, and putting in those hours helps you. I'm gonna say a line that I'm totally stealing from the Oatmeal, which I love and is forever topical. Which is inspiration isn't a well that you draw from, because that's finite, right? Eventually that'll run out. It's more a river that you wade in. So you sort of get inside of inspiration, or you be in inspiration, or you allow yourself to be in a place through various methods to be inspired, to be ready to receive ideas. And that's different for everybody, rather than like what's going to be the thing that causes the idea, or where do I go and what do I do? A lot of some of my best ideas again are, and I should cultivate this more. Again, like a warm shower, or a long drive lately, or a walk somewhere where I'm completely unplugged, no phones, no anything, and where my mind can wander. and where there's nothing else that I can do that's especially nothing else that I can do that's drawing, that often can get in the way for ideas. It's really places where my attention has to be elsewhere, or I'm in bed, but like usually I would say that things like a cell phone and a lot of that stuff are the absolute annihilation of inspiration and ideas in terms of generating an idea. It's too distracting. Once you have an idea and you need reference, sure. But for me, I need to sort of have some stillness.
Do you ever run into artist block?
Oh, yeah. Usually when there's a deadline, usually when there's a new poster, I'm excited to get a new gig. I'm excited to get a new project. And then I instantly am like, what do I make? And a lot of it is, it's all overthinking.
Yeah.
But, here's a new opportunity to do a new, big, amazing thing with a band's name on it. It's going to be in front of, hundreds and thousands of fans and fans of the band. And I have an opportunity to sort of put my music out there. And it's like, okay, well, what is that going to be? And, especially with family, you're like, what's going to be successful? What's going to be and what's going to be something that sells well? What's also going to appeal to the fan base? What's going to really encapsulate the music, but also not be something that's been, beaten to death, or not something that's necessarily like, this is the thing. I'll go through all the bands of other posters that they've ever done, especially if it's a new band. And then I'll sort of try to get an aggregate of what has worked, and also what do I want to stay away from, and what has been out there too much, or, and it's a whole combo alchemy of what do I want to do? What feels like it's going to be well received? What feels like it's going to be appropriate and amplify the band's music and message? And really, what do I want to make?
Yeah.
And trying to get that balance correct. A lot of it ultimately what I want to make, and I can say, this is what I want to make, and it's appropriate for the band, but it's almost, I have to intentionally not take the band part, not take all of that out, but go, okay, balance, but also what's a cool like I have to forcibly
insert the band into your own stuff.
I kind of have to forcibly do the opposite. I have to lean back into what feels like my intuition for what I want to make. But even that has its own, like, is this totally inappropriate for the band? And by now I've developed enough confidence to say, I don't think I'm going to have that problem. But even the latest poster for Smashing Pumpkins, which is a big favorite band of mine, there was a lot of like, well, there are iconic images, but also I don't want to just tread the same old water. I want to make a new statement, but I don't want to. So it is tricky. It is a challenge in terms of block. It's more what I want to make and what's going to be appropriate, and also what am I going to not get bored making halfway through, or go, oh, now I got to render, all of these scales or this fur, or what I mean. So. What am I going to stay interested in making near the end? If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, it makes total sense. It's you balancing being yourself with also being somebody who wants to make a living, right? I mean, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an extremely creative guy with an extremely who's extremely talented, but you also, like I said, you have to be on that tightrope of how can I work with a band and also be me as an artist, and I think you do it really well, because I think most poster artists that I see, especially like I said, those big fives, have found a way, and I won't say what the other ones are, but they have found a way to be themselves and also correlate to whoever they're working with, right? I can look at your Primus poster and think, yeah, that is definitely a Primus poster. I can look at your Nine Inch Nails ones, which are my favorite, by the way, and I think of Nine Inch Nails. Like I can see the darkness and I can see the that tone, right? So I mean, I see it. I think the fans see it. You do it well.
Thank you. There is very much, my first Nine Inch Nails poster is still possibly my favorite that I've ever done. If not, it's in the top couple.
It's at the,
funny story.
yeah. I just want to know which one was your first.
Oh, that would be the butterfly.
Yeah. Please tell me that story. I'm very curious because there's about 5 of them, or I mean, there's different variants and whatnot. But I kind of wanted to go into that too with that poster.
Yeah, that was really funny. So Nine Inch Nails is one of my favorite bands, and I desperately wanted to do a poster, and I had also started a new project called Lepidoptera, which has since turned into a big thing, very successful. And the original idea, what it is a series of these wild out there moths that all have eyes on them. And the first one I had made was, actually it's related to your artist block question, was something I was working on in and around when I was no longer feeling other posters or jobs, or I had worked all day and I was exhausted mentally from that piece, but I still had creative juice in the tank. And I was like, I need to go make something fun for me. I need to just do something that doesn't have to, that can be totally outside of the box, where if I'm doing client work, there are limitations for the content or whatever. So I started this moth and this butterfly, and to try to sell it as an art print. Like it was going to be an art print that I did. And I posted a progress shot of it to Instagram, and someone said, "Oh, this would make a killer Nine Inch Nails poster." And I responded, and I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to do that. I could see that. Hey, Nine Inch Nails, hit me up," or something like that. I don't think I said that, but I'm like, yes, I would love that. And like the next day, I got a call. I got an email. It said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing a Nine Inch Nails poster?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, absolutely! It's one of my favorite bands." And he said, "The only caveat is it's a very, very short deadline. The other person backed out, and we need you to fill in." And I said, "That's okay." And in fact, I have an image that someone, I told them the story, and they said, and I sent it to him. He's like, "This is great. Like, yeah, this perfect. Like, proceed with that." And so it was that moth, and I repurposed it, and I added a couple glitches, and I really tweaked it to be more for me for Nine Inch Nails and for what that would look like. And I tried to capture that and also kind of keep it kind of simple, but I really wanted a striking, strong poster. And in my mind, I it's what I love to make, but I felt like it totally worked. It wasn't just because that person said so. And I made it. It's one of my most successful, and the posters I'm so happy with. And what's really interesting is kind of a perfect situation. And he was like, "Oh, on top of that, thank you so much. We'll give you this other gig." And that's where I did the Beetle that kind of corresponded with that. And what's funny is if I had not had the short timeline and I had not sort of had that, sort of narrative idea from social media, I'm almost positive I would have overthought the poster, and I would have made something that I was less happy with because it was, a dream gig, and, I can make anything, which becomes paralyzing because you have to make, to me, the best image for this, again, one shot. It might be the only shot I ever get at this, and I want to just do it right, and I love that band, and so this was a perfect, and I loved the poster, and I still do, and I don't always feel that way about all my work.
Sure.
But it was such a kind of kismet sort of perfect situation, and really constraint is an amazing thing. And even in the execution of it, I designed it in a way that would be as printer friendly as possible for how I did it, and the printing turned out great. And anyway, yeah. So, and then what's funny is I had to redo the Lepidoptera project now, because I used that piece now for that, which was fine. But that was also my test to go, is this other piece going to be successful as an idea? And based on how the Nine Inch Nails poster went, I was like, yes, I'm pretty sure this is going to be, and it was, and it has been. So that was a fun kind of multiple pronged wild situation, and really just one of those happy accidents that
Right.
that really turned out great.
If I'm not mistaken, there are variations on that, but like different colors and such, right? Am I correct in
Yeah,
that?
so as part of what I sort of was taught by Zoltron in terms of variants, and also by then it was a case of there's often a time when I'm working on a poster where one of the things that takes the longest is at the end where I play with color and move sliders around and really try to hone in. I'll be working on the piece in a certain color, but it's almost never what I finally submit because I'm using a color schema. By the end is when I can be done with the image and just start tweaking for final color and output and screens and especially when I layer colors and they have to build off each other, kind of like watercolor. There's time to really get in there and adjust and tweak. And there's often, every time there's versions where I'm like, oh, this would be a great colorway, but so would this, and I have to choose one. And so, options for variants to keep it interesting. So I did the main image. I did one that was in black and white. I really wanted something gritty like that. I think the Witch album had just come out, and the main image colorway kind of looked like Downward Spiral. So I thought that would be a strong image. And then I did an experimental one on black paper.
Yeah, I remember
And there was a lot of the image that was black, and the logo itself was black. So it was a really risky, and it was kind of one of those that this is my artist variant. This is going to be the weird one. Like this is going to be, and I think there was a purple version. And like this is going to be the oddball, like I try to always do something that may fail, and whatever I do, I try to always break it. And it just turned out really, really fascinating to me because it was kind of like a super dark brown on black, but because it was kind of a glossy ink, it's one of my favorite variants of anything I've ever done. And it was just really, you almost can't see a lot of it, but I liked that sort of. It felt appropriate for the band too, of that kind of ghosted back, hidden, grungy sort of, where it disappears. And so that piece was called Fragile, and there were like 3 other variants total for that one, if I recall.
that's a great name for that image, right?
Well, yeah,
Oh,
I wanted to do. The other one was, damn it, the Beatle one was. It's escaping me now. Got to look it up. But yeah, I wanted to name them after songs.
The Fragile is probably one of my favorite Nine Inch Nails songs.
Well, there you go. And plus with the butterfly wing, and it's kind of decaying, and the wings are sort of tattering at certain parts, and there's a glitch in it. I thought that was a good way to go. I don't normally name my posters, but I really wanted to make that special.
That was actually a question of mine: of how many of them do you name? Like, or when does it strike you to do that?
The naming is funny. I always name my pieces, almost always name my pieces after they're done. Even if I have an idea, sometimes I have an idea and I scribble out the name real quick. Sometimes that becomes the final, but almost never. Or it'll be an image based on a phrase, and then that kind of becomes the name. But usually, my naming. This is why I'm not a real artist.
You are.
Well, like for a gallery show or whatever, you're supposed to plan things. I don't know. I name my pieces as if I'm reacting to them after I've made them in a way that is divorced from me having made it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what I was feeling in the piece, a lot of them are feelings, a lot of them are not really emotions, but they're sort of like a headspace. They're snapshots of where I am in my life and what's going on in my head, and just sort of even if it's about a skull on something, there's a not really a narrative, but there's sort of a narrative in my head of where I was that I can see that not everyone else needs access to, because it's not really about that. It's kind of too abstract. So I react in a way to what I made and to sort of my headspace and name the pieces that. And I try to leave them a little amorphous so that I don't want to give someone, exactly what it is or what it's about. And it often isn't exactly about something. They're kind of these snapshot feelings. So the naming is always the hardest. And if I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't. Naming and signing my name, I just, so I would name them all untitled, but you can't do that.
Entitled
So,
one,
yeah, the naming
two.
is usually at the end, and half the time I don't do it.
When did you start noticing your fan base grow? Or how was that? Actually, how was that to like notice? All right, there people are getting attached to this. People want my, especially posters, right? It's got to be a wild feeling.
It's definitely a wild feeling. I mean, to this day, it's humbling and wild, and I don't always know how to manage it correctly or approach it in a way that doesn't just lead to narcissism or inflated ego, but also go like, hey, you earned what you've done. I don't ever think I'll handle it fully properly, but I think Instagram was probably the biggest thing. I was reluctant to go on, and my wife pushed me, and I'm like, it's just pictures of food and cats. Like, why would I? And this was back in the day when the algorithm was really, really sequential, and I just won the lottery or something. Like I was making images like every day. I like to think they were interesting. I was pumping stuff out constantly. I was posting, if not daily, a couple times a day. And my following just skyrocketed. And so that was kind of one of the first times I saw, it's a metric, right? I mean, the follower count is only relevant in so much as in this world of social media and where our attention lies, I seem to have a lot of bandwidth and people and followers and then all of a sudden the hardest part was then, if they make a comment or a like or a message or a request, it really started to become where before I was just happy to sell anything and I'll talk to anyone and I'll respond to every comment and I'll have conversations. And I liked that connection with people. I started to have to sort of put up walls and boundaries to get anything done and to also sort of keep myself sane.
Sure.
I was talking with other artists and it's kind of a recurring theme because you want to engage with your fans. Even fans feels like a weird word forever, but the people who appreciate your work and you want to respond and you want to say thank you. But you also have to manage certain expectations where people can't just talk with you all day or make requests. So, hey, it's my kid's this, or it's my wife's. And so it's a tricky situation to be supportive, be thankful and supportive and acknowledge them, and also have time to yourself and your family and off time and downtime. So it's really, but that was probably the first time it was really like, oh, I have to manage this. These people want this. I can't keep up. And it's a little bit more of it required more bandwidth than I had, and I had to make choices.
Do you remember, or do you have like a moment that was where maybe the most memorable reaction somebody has had to a piece of your art?
Yeah, there's a couple. Probably the most direct and obvious one is people getting it tattooed, and people getting it tattooed very large on their body. Full back pieces or full sleeves. And man, every time I'm just always like, I hope you like that forever. And, I didn't design the work to be tattooed, so I hope you work with a good tattoo artist. People make requests or they ask for permission, and I'm always like, I can't police this, so do what you want. And also, I appreciate you asking, but tattoo whatever you want that I've ever made. Maybe buy a piece, maybe, or at least the one thing I request is for people to acknowledge that it's my work if they post it anywhere. But that's still always surreal to me. And I have a folder of everything anyone's ever sent me because it's just wild to me. And now that I'm older, it's like, I know a lot of tattoo artists and, we make similar work at times, and it's a little less strange, but it still is always humbling to go, that is your skin forever. And then there have been a few other stories of people where they were in a really down place in a really dark place, and they would tell me stories of how my art kind of lifted them up or helped them through, or someone had lost a child, and it was like a miscarriage type thing, and wanted to buy some work because my work was the thing that they loved, like in terms of their hobby, and it helped them sort of get through some of that, which I just thought was I just found like my work isn't that great or that important, and I was really kind of humbled and blown away by that. And similar other stories where people have been down, and my work kind of could be something that helped get them through something like that. And it's really humbling because I don't look at my work as
medicine.
No, what? Huh?
As medicine.
Well, I try to give. I'm appreciative of anyone who likes what I make, to share sort of my point of view, but that my work could be helpful or something that carries people, as even just like I want to keep my ego in check. Just thinking about it is very, oh man, it's heavy, and I'm honored. I just I don't know. It feels like I don't know. I don't want to say responsibility, but it feels. I'm always blown away. I'll just say, like, I'm always surprised and humbled that can have that impact.
Well, speaking of impact, when you are releasing a piece, is there ever a specific view that or feeling that you want your viewers to take away from your art? Do you ever have like a solid message?
I've done some work for like I did a piece for, I don't want to get political. I did a piece for the ACLU at the time when our upcoming president was elected, because I felt like I had to channel my feelings into something.
Sure.
that and I wanted to make something very dark, and I made something very light. And I donated, and I mentioned I was donating a chunk of the money to the ACLU to do something, And so I wanted people to get that message directly. I mean, I literally put it right there in the piece on a banner that said an urgent need for a renewed sense of compassion. And that piece was called Urgent Need. But other than something so direct, again, I try to, as I said before, I try to make something that's going to pull people in. And I like to reward people for leaning in and give them details that, maybe are hard to find. I'll have people say, I've had this piece for a year and I just saw something new in it the other day, which is always a delight. But I do try to, I rarely try to have something be so directly on message.
Were there any artists previously or currently that you like or took inspiration from? Like who were your favorites when you were young and crafting your style?
Oh God, I am the biggest art geek and nerd for like fellow artists, and I joke that I don't want to collect art. I want to collect artists. I want to, if I like their work, I want to get to know them, mainly because I have an addictive personality and I would just collect too much. But
it's why I do this.
Yeah, right. I'm looking behind you and seeing all those posters.
But I still do have the same mentality where I want to know the people.
Yeah. Well, and because ultimately, with a piece of art, not to derail, it's not a, and I tell people this, it's not a piece of your art, it's a piece of you.
Sure.
It's a piece of who you are and your mindset and your views. Growing up, it was very much the things that I saw that I was like, wow, the stuff in my head I knew was kind of weird and kind of dark or kind of just surreal or bizarre. So growing up, MTV and Liquid Television were massive. I'd seen some heavy metal magazine articles here and there, and that was also pretty profound. But Mad Magazine was one of them. But probably Liquid Television, things like Eon Flux. They had the Max on. I didn't actually really read and collect comics. Ironically, I I went to a comic shop, saw all the gorgeous covers, was blown away, and then I would open them up and be like, "Oh, what? Where's the art that was on the cover?" And that's where I had to learn that like the cover art is often so. But skate shops and that sort of anywhere where there was kind of even cartoons, something that was really just kind of out there. And Liquid Television is probably one of the biggest ones where I could see images that were or content that was really kind of out in left field. So growing up, that was probably one of the biggest ones. Specific artists, probably Giger was a big influence. Obviously, his methods in darkness. Others, again, in the comic world, that was a little late Ninja Turtles, obviously, and then the graphic novels of that. But probably, and when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my work and where it could fit, and at that time we had moved to New York, and I even tried going, door to door in galleries, and clearly my work wasn't going to fit there. It just didn't. It was in the wrong sort of place for these galleries. And then when we moved out to the West Coast, California, then I started to really, I started to learn about Juxtapose and High Fructose in the magazines and be like, oh, wow, this is a lot more of the kind of work that I make. Like, this is where my work fits. I didn't know this existed. And that's when I really sort of was like, the LA art scene is very much where my work can fit. And from then it was like, it would kind of fit into the dark art scene, people like Chet Zar, and
sure,
there were analogs, but I've started to hone more into like a foothold and a place for my work where, and then those artists, it was very much like, this is my fellow people, like, and then I started getting interested in them. But growing up, it was probably MTV, a lot of the shorts. Giger, other artists that were kind of surreal and out there. People like Ralph Steadman.
Yeah,
was
who doesn't
one.
love Ralph Steadman?
Yeah, and especially as a guy using ink, and in college, I remember talking about him, and the joke was that he must put like acetate down or something before he does the splatters to get them in the right spot. And he was there was an interview with him about that. One of my art teachers was telling me, and he was offended, and he was like, no, like I just throw it on there and whatever. And I thought that was really amazing too, of real risky and real out there, and it doesn't really follow the rules of how you prepare a piece for a gallery. And so I don't know if that's an answer.
No, it's a great answer. I'm kind of curious to go through a couple pieces and maybe tell some stories on where you were at making them, and if there's anything interesting behind them.
Let me pull up my search over here.
The first one, which is one of my favorites, and it's the one that I own, is the deer.
Oh, the Dave Matthews, the Alpine, Just a Peak.
Because to me, it's a little bit different than some of your other stuff. Maybe I'm wrong, but
no. Very much. I got a funny story about that, and a member of Tool. That one was interesting because I very much. So it was originally a Dave Matthews Band gig poster, and it was for Alpine Valley in.
I have the art print somewhere. It's in my living room. It's framed in my living room.
Which variant do you have? What color?
The blue one.
Okay, yeah. The dark blue one?
Yeah.
Or is it, okay, like the real dark one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that one's really that one's very much very moody and dark, and I like that one because of how mysterious it is. That one was Alpine Valley, which was oh gosh, where was it exactly? I'm looking it up. Anyway, this piece was a lot of times the bands want something that is very specific to the venue, right? And they want the this or that. Wisconsin. And I don't like drawing buildings. I don't like drawing, the iconic thing that is of that place. But I knew I very much knew I wanted to make an animal again. I used to make a lot more animals, and I wanted to do something interesting. In this case, with a mood. You were talking earlier about a specific thing, and this was one where I specifically had an idea that two things. I wanted to get a moment. I wanted to get a moment in time, and so this just a peek is where this deer catches your eyes and before it runs off and in the woods, and it's got the glowing horns. I didn't realize till later where someone was like, "Oh, it's a Patronus from Harry Potter," and I was like, don't know that I would have realized that was not the plan, which is embarrassing. But and I don't think I would have done that, but. And the other thing is I really wanted to push depth in a piece where using color and value, I really pushed, like a deep forest, you could see you're in the way foreground and this thing is far back. And I wanted to really have a sense of many planes of depth to this. And I really wanted to capture the idea of catching a snapshot, like again, just a peak, like just a moment with a connection with something that is not human. In this sort of mysterious, magical way, and in my mind before it gallops off, and this idea that that's one of these rare moments that you can have in connection with something that is beautiful or supernatural or nature specifically with another intelligence or being or a connection through the eyes and sight that is a rare moment that you can't pull your camera out too fast. You can't get close to it, and sort of personifying that magic sort of through the horns as something that is in this case it's a fantastic creature, but to jazz it up a little. But it was really about that kind of moment that you have, and sort of the magic that happens when you're able to have these little moments in nature. Nature's always been a big element for me. That is sort of the glory of nature, but also this moment. And I really like how it turned out. Props to Lady Lazarus, who printed this, for really making it sing. This is one of the few prints that when I opened up, I was in a hotel at a convention. I opened it up and I kind of gasped. And I had someone with me, and they can vouch. I was stunned by it because every screen print is a collaboration with a screen printer. So They can make or break it, and so they completely nailed the printing on this. And I made the work, but it was just seeing it in person is also very when you're looking at it on a screen and then seeing it printed is. And especially this piece really made me happy. How many
of your pieces do they all end up digital at the end?
They do. The nature of screen print is that they had the output is that to burn screens. And my first job out of college was at a print house where I had learned this forever ago. How to do these sort of file preps is it has to be a digital file that is printed out on a piece of film. I mean, there are certain artists who will work directly on film. There are certain artists, so you can basically, to burn a screen, you have to have a black and white image, and then you burn it on a plate that has a photo emulsion, or a screen that has a photo emulsion that is then exposed, that whole process. So 99% of the time it has to be digital to output those layers. And lately, this is an example where I'm working 100% digitally. And I kind of need to get back to drawing in ink and then scanning it, because there's relying on the digital and being able to zoom forever and zoom in and out. You can lose a sense of composition, or at least I can. And so I kind of want to get back to really drawing and maybe even inking all the way through. Also, then I have an original to sell, rather than just doing the whole thing digitally.
The next one that is one of my favorites is, and and I don't know how long ago this was. It's like a lady riding a chameleon.
Oh, a Pale Rider. There was also a gig poster.
Yeah, it was Primus one.
It's not a lady, it's a man.
Is it?
Let me see here. I mean, I guess it's sort of indeterminate.
You
You can't really tell.
Yeah, what I like about it is it kind of, in my opinion, encompasses all of your style, where it has this animal, but it's also fantastical. There's some elements of fantasy and reality and these very vibrant backgrounds. Because I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, one thing I really like about your work is sometimes it's really, really dark backgrounds, and sometimes it's it's like a whole universe behind there.
Mm.
And sometimes you do have a whole universe behind it.
Sometimes it's very dark and there's like nothing and it's almost like void. And sometimes it goes on forever. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. This piece has become kind of one of the iconic, probably the definitive piece in my poster career that is the most sought after, that is the most requested, that is the most. To this day, I analyzed this piece to try to see what people like so much about it, and I have a couple theories. But chameleons are amazing. You pretty much hit it on the head. It's got elements of fantasy. It's got elements of sci-fi. To me, this has an element of Dune in my mind.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
It's called Pale Rider. I actually have a universe that I'm developing with these Pale Riders. There's another piece in this series that was for Trey Anastasio band. That was another Pale Rider. Where I like the idea. I like the idea. Sci-fi novel covers is another big source of inspiration. I kind of like always, I've read some sci-fi, not as much as I'd like, but the cover images, and they're usually painted, were always so, and they were so, the world building of them was very, very compelling to me. So I wanted to make something that very much had a narrative that had, this rider is looking off into the distance with these high-tech binoculars, and is clearly a traveler, and these. He has these bags and he has a coil of rope and there are these gadgets on there, and this creature has clearly been kitted out, sort of like a Bedouin. I referenced like some Bedouin camel riders for some of the look of the packs and the carpet and the tassels, and it's strapped to him, but clearly this thing could destroy this guy if it wanted to. So it's domesticated, but there's always, and it's in the fiction, there's a sort of a symbiosis between these two. And there's jewelry on and carvings in the mantle of the chameleon, and they work as one together. And he's got this halberd axe that's also a gun, if you can't quite tell at the tip of it. There's a barrel there. So and he's looking for something, and there's this wilderness, and he's on this ancient bizarre alien log, and there's this. So this is not this planet. This is another universe, and you don't even quite know what he's searching for. But this is one of my favorite pieces that I've done, and the reaction to it has been great, and it is kind of a great encapsulation.
Do you remember coming up with the idea? Or do you remember starting the idea?
I actually do. This is one where I could probably pull up the sketch somewhere, but I specifically remember in this piece, I'd been wanting to do a chameleon for a long time, and I was trying to figure out compositionally how to do this. And I had this idea of this diagonal slash, like I wanted a diagonal, and he's on this diagonal branch. I don't know if you have it up on screen.
Yeah.
And there was something about, in the spiral of the tail, I really tried to play with composition and getting the framing right, and his horn breaks the frame. I knew I wanted to do that. The tree branch breaks the frame. I really played with composition to try to make a satisfying image. but with this big diagonal element. And then, sort of assembling the whole thing. I'm going to see if I can pull up the sketch, actually. There's a working version of it, but it's 3/4 of a gig. That may be a bit. And I save a lot of, in progress shots of this specifically that someday I'll, if I put a book together or something. But I do remember working on this. I do remember sketching it out. I do remember it ended up being a lot of work. This actually was inked. This was, worked on, close enough final trace for ink, in which I get it tight. But I put a lot of effort and time into this piece, probably more than I should have for a gig poster at the time. But that was the mindset that I was going into these, was make them like they were fine art prints, which financially was probably not the smartest, but it paid off. But yeah, I remember working on this piece. I remember refining it. There was a point where I hated it. Even the working photo is not. It was when I was converting it from the original poster. So I love it, but I think I'm still sort of struck by just how much everyone else has loved this piece. I think I didn't quite. I was happy with it, but I don't think I was very surprised by the response to it. I thought it was good, but I didn't think it would have the response that it did.
I find that happens a lot with artists that I talk to, where some, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them where they're like, I don't know about this one, and then it just explodes. And then other ones where they're like, this is going to be the one that just skyrockets, and maybe don't.
I mean, I think that's why. Every artist I've known, there's a piece that they worked hard on. They thought it was going to be great, and it didn't land. It was a lead balloon. And other pieces that I've done, I could. There's one specific example where it was an off the cuff, quick idea. I even thought it was stupid. I was like, is this anything? Is this a thing? Is this stupid? Is this just like not good? And it became one of my most sought after pieces.
Which one is that?
This is Gonzo.
Gotcha.
For my I had a show at Gallery 1988, and it was all pop culture, and it's basically the Muppet Gonzo dressed as Hunter S. Thompson with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and it's real splattery, and it was done with marker and watercolor. And I did it. I ran upstairs. I was with my wife on the couch downstairs in our old place, and I ran downstairs, and I threw it together in, like an hour tops. And so you come up with ideas for the show, and I almost didn't submit it. And I was like, this might be dumb. And people to this day, are nuts about that piece.
I love the reflection in his glasses.
Now I gotta even remember. I know I put one in there. It's been so long.
I have it pulled up on Google right now, but even the collar on his bandana. I mean, it's hilarious because it's
the collar I was happy with. Yeah. I had fun with trying to get the lighting on there, and I wanted that sort of floral, crazy collar.
It's very Hunter S. Thompson-y.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the goal, and which in a way means Ralph Steadman-y. But,
yeah, exactly.
I wanted the splattery, but I wanted it to look like him, and again, I was like, is this dumb? Is this anything? And people want it on shirts. People want it. I've seen it bootlegged everywhere. And it just was like, you never know. Like, and so I think the fact that happens so often, well, not so often, but often enough that it happens at all, that I think artists often, we're too close to it.
Sure.
We're making the piece, but we don't, and then when you work really hard on something and it lands dead, you're like, what don't I know? And then you have a piece that, not that you didn't work as hard on, but you don't think it was going to do as well, and people rave for it. I mean, maybe other people have it locked in, but so often I'm like, if I had that formula down, I think I'd be much more successful. But I think part of it is that I strive to continue to try to take risks as much as I can. I try to. I've admittedly done a little less the last few years, but I try to, which is part of the thing of like when, you have more, life gets more demanding and bills and things. You want to really try to dial in with what you think is going to be most effective, but that can, mean taking less risk, and also the economy. But I try to, in general, whenever I can, to do something that's a little bit going to break whatever I'm doing, or be an experiment, or otherwise, what's the point?
So again, you say when you attack some of these, you are in a specific headspace, or it's just kind of like what's going in. Does the art itself do the opposite, where it affects you? Like maybe something like the Beetle from Nine Inch Nails, or like one of the Metallica ones that you did that were a little more dark. Do those ever affect you in a specific way? Did the art ever change you?
No, if anything, what happens is the reaction to the art. Me making the art, it's sort of like trying to tickle yourself. Like I made it, so I am inoculated from it, because all I see, and a lot of artists I know are the same way, or all I see are like the mistakes or the errors, or the struggles that I had. It's too close to the metal, as they say. Quiet Rapture is one of my favorite pieces to date, and it was really in a time when I was going very ornate and detailed and lush. I really still have a fondness for this piece. The Beetle and Nine Inch Nails, that was another fun one to do. The Metallica pieces. I'm affected by the response to them.
Sure.
Which Metallica piece? The Dragon, or
you have a couple, but I mean they're just a little on the more dark, or even let's take I think it's maybe the most recent Primus one, or it was 2018 one. It's the face with the tongue sticking out.
Oh, that was an art print.
Sorry, I keep missing it.
So I see it. I see it. Yeah, that wasn't the most recent. That was yes, that was Grand Rapids. No, Greek Theater.
Yeah,
that's interesting, because that was one where that was a really fun one to do. That was one where I had started an image, and I thought it would be cool for the poster, but it didn't quite work. But I really liked this wild face I was making, and so actually it was a few times where I redid it to try to get it right for the piece. I did the Primus all hand drawn. This one was all done in ink. And again, there was the nervous that, like, is this too weird? Is this too... Also, this is funny backstory inside baseball. This was actually for another date right around here, and there was an issue with something, and we flip-flopped the two images. I had two posters ready to go, luckily, and either this one was too complicated or something. But what was the original question? Does it affect me? I mean...
you stated it affects the reaction affects you, right?
Yeah, like this one is actually a great example of me really having a lot of fun and doing what I want. And I mean, it's wild and it's weird, and this is the one that's tricky, because I start to go, what does this ultimately have to do with Primus and Greek Theater? Yes, but is this going... You see the reactions from fans, and some people say you should never look at them, you should never listen to them, but it is also important to me, because you're making this for fans of the show, and you're making this for people who consume and want to buy posters for the band that they like. So it's tricky. There's very much an argument to be made of like, well, what do you gain from hearing them? Because, there's a million different inputs, but and it's usually like the negative stuff that sticks out. But this was one where I was really surprised by how well it was received. And even when I released this as an art print, I thought the art print was going to sink, because without the band info and just a face, like this dark, wild face, like, it felt like, who's going to want to put that on their wall? Who's going to want to, like, how do you want to? And it sold out so fast. And I was dumbfounded, because I was like, I had a lot of fun with this. I like this image, but, it didn't feel like something that would, I don't know, like, it's one of those, I'm usually wrong. Like, I have not locked it in. I love doing this kind of image, and it's one where there's a nervousness that comes from I'm having so much fun with this in a way that is my just making it up as I go along, reacting to what I've already put there. There's so many hidden faces in this, and I love it. But if I had to pitch this to a client, it was like the original pitch sketch was like weird face, or I think I'd already started this. I don't know I don't know what the sketch was. I should have it in here.
Oh wow!
So this is so clearly this is a case. I do this a lot, and it's a bad move for anyone out there trying to get into this space where I will get an idea and I will run with it, and I will, for my sketches, sometimes if it feels right, I'll just keep going. And this was a case where I can't believe this is the sketch because I'd done the Primus text differently. So I clearly had already been working on this face, but I rendered the entire Primus text and that border down below. You can totally see it's for a different date. It was for a different venue because that's the one it was supposed to be for. And I clearly just started working on the final as my sketch, which I do often because by that point they trusted me. And so I know these pieces go big. So I've never liked sketching and then giving a final. It feels like I'm doing it twice. And again, why I do a seed of things because, I would rather it's what I feel in the moment, and when I get bored with it, it's never as enjoyable as just when I have an idea and I'm like, just go. It's sort of the inspiration thing, and I knew I was working on this and excited for this. So this is an example of where you just see the final in the sketch, but the rough sketch is usually like ta 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 ta. This is what's in my head. Please let me get to this other part. And sometimes that backfires where I go this far with a piece and they don't accept it. And so I have a very, very well halfway along rendered piece, which is why you shouldn't do that, boys and girls, when working with clients, get an approved sketch. But it's how my busted brain works, of just falling into an image. So, yes.
So you have a couple, I think, are somewhat more recent ones, like the Skull in Space or the underwater one. Are those somewhat recent?
The Skull in Space, definitely. The underwater sonic coral skull is a little older, couple years older.
The reason I ask about that is because I feel like going through at least your Instagram, and maybe it's off of when maybe you post something and when it was actually released, but I'm trying to see the evolution, right, of where you might be going. And I guess that's my question, because the coral one seems to have like a little bit of both, where it's this fantasy landscape, definitely underwater, but also in like this floating face. I guess I'm just curious where you think you're evolving or how you see your art evolving.
I think what's interesting is there's some things I want to do specifically with like screen print, and that I want to try different things with. But specifically with my drawn art, one of the things I want to get back to is a little bit of some of those older pieces, some of that older style, some of a little more fun, a little bit more, a little less over the top rendered, simpler, like, a piece where there's still a lot of open space. But truly, where I'm at and where I'm evolving is I'm writing more than I ever have, and I'm sculpting more. And I'm dabbling with video and wanting to push into animation. So I joke that I think ultimately art and drawing and painting and posters may not be my final form. It may be writing, it may be working with people for some world building where I sort of sign off on things where, there's a lot of projects that I have that I don't want to draw everything because it would take too long and it'd be too limiting versus having a team of people. And maybe these are films, maybe these are animations, maybe these are, I don't know. But I had a thought on a plane coming home from a big signing in Houston. And it just kind of hit me like a lightning bolt that says, where I am in my life and who I know and the amount of people I've collected and met with their amazing skills and what I want to do. There are too many projects left that are bigger than me, that are outside of the scope of just me doing them, than what's available. What's left is me having to work with a team, is to acquire people, to acquire people with skills that they've spent their life building, rather than me keep trying to learn a brand new skill and try to master it and do it, a tenth of the ability. And time is too precious. So evolving wise, I had this idea the other day that the older you get, from all of what I've read and studied and philosophy and research and just ways of being and making art, when you start out, you're adding to a canvas. You are adding more and making it big and making it grand and dynamic. And as you get older and wiser, it seems that it's about what you take away. It's about how little you can put out there. What's the minimal amount? How can you say the most by saying and doing the least, rather than a whole bunch of rendering, a whole bunch of over the top, nothing but detail. First of all, it takes a lot of time. Second of all, there's something about it that can be forced or.
Sure.
And so I'm interested more in, and I talked to a friend recently that was like, do the most minimal drawing you can and put it up in your group and say, $20, whoever wants this, and go from there of just, exercise and restraint. Some of the people's favorite works are like, stop right now. Like when I post, like don't. And there is something about having it simpler and not over the top, and the parts where I start to get really fatigued and, a lot of it's fear. And I got to finish this, I got to finish this. But the best pieces that I've seen, and there is a reaction to a piece where you can see the restraint in someone. Like there's something really powerful about it. So I think going forward, I both want to make bigger and grander pieces, but I do also want to really push into making them more minimal, if that makes sense. Like I can go larger, I can go bigger, but compositionally I want a lot more space. I want a lot more room. I want a lot more air to breathe. I want there to be, to me, there's something more striking about a piece lately that has sort of there's a confidence in leaving a lot out, rather than I have to show you how well I can draw. I have to show you that I know how to render this well.
Or put crazy detail, or have a whole universe in the background.
Yeah, and I do love that. I really, and part of that I realized that is evolving is it's officially world building, and I'm writing and I'm developing IP, and I'm slowly and painfully, but like I want to build worlds, but individually in a piece, I think there's a stronger image that has room to reflect and pause and sort of the way a leaf would drift over water, rather than, I don't know. And for the world building, it's like, okay, I want to build worlds and maybe even have somebody else illustrate them. But it's narrative and writing. So sure. I don't know if that's an answer.
Yeah, no, it's a great answer. I have two more questions.
Hit me.
One, so you attend a lot of the like Designer Con, Comic-Con, those kinds of conventions. And what I see you do mostly there is either paint your sculptures or add on to existing stuff. What are your thought processes, or how do you feel about adding on to things that you've already finished, or like for fans?
Are you talking about people who bring in posters, or when I do like my auction on a piece and I'm hand embellishing?
Yeah, when you're hand embellishing.
Like for someone's poster, or like on
either or.
one that I work on.
Let's say the ones that you work on, because I mostly see those ones where you're spending like a day just kind of messing around with it and adding little things here and there. And how did that start? And like, why do you think people gravitate towards artists adding to posters?
It started a few years ago. It was one of two friends that had suggested it, but I'm always painting live in a booth, period, because for two reasons. One of them is I kind of always want to be drawing and painting, and when it's slow and dead in a booth in a convention and there's nothing else to do, I want to draw. I mean, I kind of always want to draw and paint. And the second reason is that it draws people in. And if it's slow and dead, and people want to see you make the work. That's why they follow. It's why and I learned a long time ago, people want to be connected to work and see sort of for lack of a better word, the magic happen. They want to see the creation in front of them, just like I like to see it from artists that I enjoy. And so there's something about being present with the creation of something, especially all the way through, that there is not an ownership, but there's a connection to it. And also people just like to see that. And I can do it. I've found that apparently not a lot of other artists cannot do it and don't want to do it in front of people live. It makes them uncomfortable. And that's understandable. I am lacking that gland or something, or self-awareness to be that self-conscious about it. So I'm often drawing and painting anyway. And the idea was, when there's people wanting to do commission sketches or whatever, what about doing an auctioned piece, a piece that I work on the entire convention, then auction it off at the end. So that it sort of evolved from drawing and painting live and doing commissions to, and especially when I bring a rare piece to hand embellish, to go like, let's bring something rare and big, and I'll hand embellish it, and I'll go over the top of my hand embellishment, and people can watch it. And some insider baseball. My background is in fine art and galleries, and there is an energy at a gallery buying pieces before someone else does, or at an auction, right? Where there's I spend more at galleries at an opening than I normally do on art, period, because I want to snag that piece before someone else does, and it's amazing. And there's an energy there that's
a competition,
sort of
even.
What's that?
A competition, even.
It's a bit of a competition, mainly that you have to get there first. There's shows that I've gone to where it's like, oh man, somebody, or it's sold before the event, or, to a private buyer, or something happens where you're like, I really wanted that piece and I couldn't get it. And so there's very much a element of that. So I know that is also the case too, especially in an auction format of like, I've been watching him make this piece. I'm here in person. I want this piece. I'm willing to bid, rather than, and then there's also something that's not just, someone bought it and the other person couldn't get it. I've had cases where people are like, I would be willing to spend this much on it and pay more. And it's like, well, as a guy who makes a living selling his art, in a way, some of that's money left on the table, but you can't auction every piece. So it became a way to facilitate the answer to all of those things, and the enjoyment in painting live and knowing that people enjoy that. So it turned into a regular event. So now I have where I'll do an older piece that I hand embellish, and often a rare piece. And that was actually the goal for this last designer con, but I've been pushing into sculpture, and it was the same idea to have pieces that I'm working on there auctioned live, to just pivot to 3D for that show. Probably for Comic-Con and other shows, I'll go back to doing gig posters or prints, but why it's specifically on posters and prints versus just a painting. I've done that before in the past, where I did some paintings and drawings. Making an entire thing from scratch, I do the live painting at Bar Basic at Comic-Con. It's intense because you have to do an entire piece from start to finish. And while I do commissioned sketches, doing a single painting, it's always easier for me to work on a piece, and why I like hand embellishing, that I've already spent a lot of time on and built, because it almost gives me the opportunity to push the piece in a direction that I didn't take when I was working on it. So I get to iterate. I get to go, this time I'm going to make this piece go this way or this way, where, I don't have to worry about building the entire piece. It's done. I can hand embellish, and I can change certain things that maybe I want to edit, but it doesn't have to be making an entire piece from scratch. And people also know this is what I'm going to get. It's this band I like. It's this poster I like versus this whole piece you made. I don't have a connection to it. It's that print I like. It's that band I like. There's already some buy-in.
Sure.
And now I'm just making it, I was looking for that print anyway. And now even for the hand embellished version, it's the extreme version, and people seem to want to bid on it.
And it's almost like getting an original piece of art. Like you're painting on it. It's your paint.
By the end, it's usually a full painting over it, and I might as well call it an original painting. People have told me a long time ago that hand embellishing is not really the right term for what I do. Some people, hand embellishing, it's like a small thing or a little detail, and I paint over the whole thing. So once again, I kind of wing everything and don't really know the rules, make them up as I go.
I think that's why you're successful. Last question, what advice would you give? I mean, you've given a lot of advice throughout this of what not to do, but what advice would you give artists that they should pay attention to, or maybe that they should keep in the back of their mind?
What I would say is what was different for artists or young artists than what I went through, and where I see a lot of peril is social media is a powerful force. And if you're starting out making anything, music, art, anything, and the world says post it and put it online and have people look at it and build a following and build an account, especially with AI coming, there's what's missing really is sort of the headspace that says, art is often a very long hours and solitary event of lots of doing, lots of drawing and painting, and lots of practice, and lots of making bad work. Sure. And the curation of a social media feed from someone is showcasing the optimum, idealized version. I wish we could normalize showing bad work or in progress or rough work a little better, because everyone has it, everyone does it, and especially when you're starting out and younger, you have to make a lot of bad work. Maybe more artists, including myself, could post earlier terrible work, but there's sort of this idea that you want to put your best foot, best life, best piece. You want to get the most interesting content out there, but it's a double-edged sword, and it's a danger, I think, to young artists, especially if they're consuming a lot of that and looking online at the artists that they like. You're seeing a curated final form. You're not seeing the years of struggle and the years of, and frankly, of constant bad work being made. You're seeing the results. You're seeing it's a marathon. You're seeing the person sort of near the end of the tape. It took a lot of painful steps to get there. And I think there's both a resistance to that. I think people want the quick, how do I get famous? How do I get a gig poster gig? How do I get good? And, one of the things that comes up a lot, or used to, is, which pens should I use for younger artists? And, and it's kind of the same statement. I see the pens that you use are the pens that are left after you've tried as many pens as you can, and you found that they don't work for you. But I can't give you that answer up front, because pens that work for me may not be the pens that work for you. And the pens that do work for me, if I told you, you're not going to have any understanding of why they're good or bad and the merits that they have. They may just feel awkward and clumsy because you haven't used a ballpoint pen and then another pen or a cheap pen, and they're really, it's what I'm talking about is just experience. And I think social media has this bad component. Listen, I live on it for my business, but it has this bad aspect to it that says, look at these artists that can never do anything wrong, or that make constantly nothing but great. And, this idea that you were born with talent or not. And part of why I'm interested in wanting to look into teaching is there's so much, quick anecdote. I know I go on and on. When I wanted to learn watercolor in college, my main mentor, my teacher, David Christiana, an incredible artist and teacher, he said, I'll give you the advice my teacher gave me. learning watercolor. And he said, step one, make 100 watercolor paintings. And then we'll get to step two. And of course, what that means is you go through step 1 through 73 of technique and how long it dries. You do one piece, no matter what it is. You make your painting, your drawing, your song, your sculpture, and whatever it is what it is. The second piece that you make is instantly better in some way than the previous one, because you're iterating off the things that didn't work. And the third piece, and so on, where, what taught you? How did you get good? Did you need to have a teacher? Those things can absolutely help, but you can look at your previous work and go, okay, that didn't work. That hand didn't look right. That face, that nose is off. And doing one thing, it's like being in a vacuum. So the more you do, whether it's figurative work or whatever it is, the more you can look at your previous work and say, oh, this is better because I did this. And so ultimately, and I think it's for any career, and in a nutshell, my soundbite would be learning how to draw, learning how to make art, learning how to make music, learning how to do anything well, ultimately is that you have to learn how to become your own teacher. You have to learn to be okay with what you did in the areas where you're like, oh, look how bad this was. And I go, no, look how bad that was. Like, don't say it as bad, but look at what you made. If let's just take a face. If you don't like that face, what don't you like about it? Is it the perspective? Is it the angles? Is it you've got a mirror. I mean, the number one thing I did as a kid is I had a mirror and I drew my face and I drew my hands. And even now you'll see me, in a coffee shop and I'm drawing an angle on my hand. And if you have something that you have all the time, which is your face, you've got a permanent model to say, okay, why does my drawing not look like that face? And classes can help you, teachers can help you, expensive colleges can, but ultimately what those are going to train and what you're going to train of yourself is to go, why doesn't it look like the way I want to? Because your taste level is really high. This is not mine. This is all over the internet, but your skill level is down here. So, and unfortunately, the truth is it will always be that way, because as you get better, the highest people in the world still have, why can't I get to what's in my head? But what you do is you do raise it, but that only happens through practice.
And putting in the work.
Making the work.
Yeah.
You got to show up and do the stuff. And it's not so much like, time in the trenches. It's truly
trial and error. It's
trial and error. It's the people that you see that are great at anything have made so many mistakes that they can't they know what happens, and it seems like they can do no wrong, and it looks flawless. It's because they've made so many mistakes so many times that it literally becomes intuition, where you're like, I know this won't work because I can't even explain it to you. It's I know it won't work, but you also have to try new things that don't work.
And knowing that, what to do when things go wrong, because you've made that mistake before. People ask me when I'm painting live, my other artists don't want to do it, like, what if you mess up? And I was like, then you haven't been paying attention. I'm messing up constantly. But if I'm going to make art, and the idea that I might mess up is the end of my art, I can't make a lot of art. You're going to mess up. Like, it becomes learning how to mess up better. Like, it just, you learn to make better mistakes by making the worse ones a lot, and you get them out of the way, and you grow from that. And just, it's a hand on a stove. You learn very quickly not to do that, and that's an immediate learning. Sure,
it's harder with anything else, like art or sculpture or anything, but it's that you have to do it enough to go, that's a bad idea to put my hand on myself. It's a bad idea to draw this way. It's a bad idea to, and which basically is just growth, So my advice is, don't be afraid that the answer is that you're going to be quote unquote bad for a while. That's the progress. That's you being good. Every next step is forward progress. Your progress ends when you stop taking steps, because that's where you stay. If you need to get from on your journey from here to there, if you stop, you don't make any more progress. If it's a long journey and you have to just keep making a lot of steps, you're making progress. It's that I'm not at the destination yet. I'm not as good. This is what I try to teach my son. You're not going to be where I am without having taken these steps. I mean, you'll be further and quicker, and I can give you tips to say, I'll give you some advice and also you guys have the internet, yeah. But you have to still. There seems to be this want for a shortcut.
I agree.
And the answer is there isn't one. I mean, there's all kinds of. I'm sculpting right now, and I'm making a lot of mistakes, and I'm asking friends, and a lot of it is like, I just did something the other night, and I'm like, I won't do that again. Like, I totally screwed that up, but I will never do it that way. I was mixing something, and it was like I mixed the wrong ratio because I wasn't paying attention with how I put the things down, and I mixed the same thing twice, and it was like, I won't do it that way again. But you learn the hard, crappy way, but that's also the best way, much like a hand on the stove. It's like you mess up something major, you're like, that's a massive bonus because
you'll never do it again.
Yeah, I had to spray some varnish on a piece once, and I accidentally used spray glue. I wasn't paying attention to which can. Guess what I'm never going to do again?
Spray glue on it.
I mean, now it's just burned onto my psyche. So I would just say, like, the slow, painful progress is the progress. There's no other way to do it. It's like a tattoo. Like, I don't want to get a tattoo because it's going to hurt. I don't know of another way that you get one. And they talk about this anesthesia now. But, like, that's the only way out is through The Mandalorian. This is the way.
Yeah. It's there's one of my favorite lyrics in a song is it's a Pucifer song, but it's you find a way through, around, or over.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, which even to me comes from a famous about evolution. Your options are move, adapt, or die.
Yeah.
You either, if your climate doesn't work, if your surroundings it's too dangerous, you go to somewhere else. If it's something that is an evolutionary thing where the atmosphere is too whatever, or you need a new organ, you adapt, you evolve, or you perish, and that's the end. But either way, it gets solved. But to move, adapt, or die, up, around, or through.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Winters, NC, thank you so much.
Chris, this was a pleasure. Thanks for having me. Sorry I talked so much and it took so long.
That's the point.
That's a lot of fun.
It's the point, is to come and have you talk. And I think this is going to be an episode people really enjoy. It's the first one back in a long time, and I'm glad it was you.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to be on your list, and that I hope I can add to the show. And again, we've had some good conversations, and I think this was another good one, and I hope people dig it.
Yeah, and then maybe in the future we'll have another one.
I'd be happy to be back, man. Depends on how this one comes out. If I can tolerate the sound of my voice. But yeah, it was a real pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Do me a favor. You mind telling everybody where they can find you, plug yourself, and maybe what you might have coming up in the future?
Unfortunately, normally I would say go to ncwinners.com, but that site is a little bit of a mess right now. It's in the middle of an overhaul, and sometimes you can't even load it. But probably my Instagram page, ncwinnersart, it does have my link tree, which points to my newsletter, my Facebook page, the artwork of NC Winners. There's also a Facebook fan group, fans of NC Winners, with some amazing people who help people find old works and talk about the work and trade works and sell each other works. What's coming up? I just finished Designer Con. I'm knee deep in sculpture. There's a lot of projects on the books. I have a couple gig posters coming up.
Anything you can tease?
Anything I can tease? Some of my most popular posters are the 2 Metallica posters that I've done, and I'm happy to say there will be a third one, but it will be a bit. It will be in 2025. toys. My new Bodhi line has been well received. I'll be releasing the I don't know when this comes out, but I'll be releasing the remainders of my DesignerCon exclusives, along with some Bodhis and skulls and my Lepidoptera variants. What else?
I think we need to start a petition for you to do a tool poster.
I would love to do a tool poster. I did have Adam go full circle. I did have Adam Jones pick up that deer piece just to peek when he came to my booth. And it was funny. I was trying to find something to give him that I thought would be relevant to his interests. And I looked at all these skulls, and he was like, "Can I have the deer?" And he just went right to it and was stoked. And he was like, "This is beautiful." So he came by the booth one year at Comic-Con. We talked, but fingers crossed.
I know there's a big push in the fan bases for you to get one of those, and even a Pucifer poster or something in that universe. But you're fondly liked by everybody I know that's into posters. Loves NC Winters.
Oh, thank you, man. I do my best. I have not done as many gig posters as of late, and I'd like to push back in. So Pucifer, Tool, Perfect Circle, any and all of those. So I had the opportunity to do a piece for Sisanta, and I turned it down due to some schedule and contract issues.
That makes me angry, NC.
I know. I do need to reach back out and say, yes, I'm very interested for the following year for Maynard's birthday. So
yeah, because
especially seeing what came out, I was really happy. So yeah, oops. Yeah. I'd love that.
Any other band, real quickly, that you haven't worked with that you'd love to work with?
Yeah. Let me give a think and get back to you. I'd love to do another 9 Inch Nails poster. That'd be a blast. Let me think on that and get back to you.
But yeah, man, thank you for coming on the show, and I can't wait for the audience to hear this. And it's been a pleasure.
Kris, my pleasure. Thanks so much, and thanks for bearing with me.
Yeah.
Spiral Out Podcast is produced by me, your host, Kris West. Edited by me, researched by me. Everything is pretty much just done by me. Go to our website, spiraloutpod.podbean.com. Follow us on Instagram at spiral_out_pod. Facebook, Spiral Out Podcast. And again, if you want to see some of the images associated with this episode, click the link in the show notes and it'll take you there. Again, thank you for listening. Spiral Out. Pod dismissed. Wait, that's another show.